The university makes a huge announcement this week regarding women's ice hockey. And we find out if men's soccer will get their first NEC title. All that and more coming up on this week's edition of Sports Paws.
And for those of you that are not familiar with Frozen Four, it's the same as Final Four. And so we were really pleased that the bid process and our staff did a great job. Everybody here at the TD Bank Sports Center, the athletic department, we put a lot of work in to do this, particularly Jamie Shulkowski and our assistant athletic director. And as you know, if you haven't heard me say this before, but I say it all the time, I continue to tell all my friends and colleagues that Quinnipiac might not have the biggest building in college sports, but we have by far the best building in college sports. And we tell that to people all the time, and we particularly were telling it to the NCAA and the Women's Ice Hockey Committee over the last, since we've been open. But I'm very pleased to announce now that the NCAA called us yesterday, and they have selected Quinnipiac University, the TD Bank Sports Center, the High Point Solutions Arena, to be the host of the 2014 Women's Frozen Four on March 21st and 23rd, and we could not be more happy about that great announcement.
Hello and welcome to Sports Paws. I'm Carolyn Fales.
And I'm Zach Russo. We've just heard big news from Jack McDonald about the women's hockey world, but that's not the only big news coming from QU Athletics this week.
That's right, Zach. One team now has the longest title streak in any sport in NEC history. And also the men's soccer team has a chance to secure home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Could they knock off two conference foes in order to do so? We'll find out, but now back to the top story.
Quinnipiac has been chosen to host the 2014 Women's Frozen Four. This is big news for the university because of the exposure the Frozen Four host gets. The event will be held at the High Point Solutions Arena at the TD Bank Sports Center. In recent years, it was held at the Amsoil Arena in Minnesota Duluth and the Conti Forum in Boston College. This also means women's hockey powerhouses like Minnesota and Wisconsin could all be making a trip out east, which officials believe is an attraction to the city of Hamden. Director of Athletics and Recreation Jack McDonald says he hopes the university can bring in over $1 million in revenue.
Women's hockey looked to find its first ECAC road wins this weekend against both Colgate and Cornell. QU went into the game against Colgate with a 30.8% success rate with power plays. Brittany Lyons added to that when she scored her fifth goal this season late in the first period on a power play. But Colgate fought back with a power play of its own in the second period when Brittany Phillips lit the lights to tie the game at 1. Kelly Babstock later secured the game-winning goal in the second period, and the Bobcats would come away with their first ECAC road win. The Bobcats then looked for revenge against Cornell, who beat them in the ECAC semifinals last year. Cornell started off strong, finding the back of the net twice late in the first period. The Bobcats woke up in the second period, scoring 3 unanswered goals, all assisted by Kelly Babstock. Cornell then scored within the first minute to tie the game at 3-3. After some sprawling saves by Victoria Vigilante, Cornell's Alyssa Gagliardi shot low, and the Big Reds secured the 4-3 lead. Senior Regan Bolton took advantage of a power play, but her shot went wide and just missed the net, giving Cornell the win. The Bobcats will travel to Union and RPI next weekend as they look to improve their 2-2 conference record and their overall 5-4-1 record.
While hockey is just getting started, the soccer season is coming to a close, and the men's team found themselves first in the conference on Friday afternoon with 2 games left and a playoff spot already clinched. Their first test to secure the number 1 seed in the conference would come against the playoff-ineligible Central Connecticut State. Both teams were 6-1-1 in conference play going into the matchup. Let's see if the Bobcats could secure home field throughout the playoffs. And there are the Bobcats ready to take the pitch. For the second to last time this regular season, they know it's at stake here, home field advantage throughout the playoffs, but they got to go through the CCSU Blue Devils first. Here's Phil Surprise trying to put the team on his back. He gives it up to Simon Hind, who takes a shot, but it goes just wide of the goal. Another try here for the Bobcats. Will Daniels is going to get it and put it in the top left corner. It's 1-0 Quinnipiac, and they're celebrating here. They're one step closer to home field advantage. But the Blue Devils are trying to come back. A corner kick here. It's going to get punched away by Borja and Goitia. And then CCSU gets another shot off the cross. Stephen Bailey's going to head it in, but that only set up Robbie McClarney for the game-winning goal.
And who else but Robbie McClarney? A chance to put Quinnipiac in prime position here. The shot from McClarney. He got it! Okolini dove towards his right. The shot went to the left. And Robbie McClarney has given the Bobcats a 2-1 lead.
The Bobcats celebrate. They're one step closer to home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Here's Taylor Massey with more.
The men's soccer team defeated Central Connecticut State 2-1. They take the number 1 spot in the Northeast Conference and need a win or a tie on Sunday against Fairleigh Dickinson to secure the number 1 spot in the NEC. Reporting from the Quinnipiac soccer fields, I'm Taylor Massey, Sports Paws.
The win versus CCSU meant that the Bobcats would need only a win or a tie versus Fairleigh Dickinson on Sunday to win the Northeast Conference. If the stakes weren't high enough, a win Sunday would also be the first title in the program's history, and it would secure home field advantage throughout the playoffs. FDU started the game today with a 6-1-2 record in the conference. Let's head to the pitch to see whose record would capture the NEC.
It's senior day for the Bobcats as they prepare to take on the Fairleigh Dickinson Knights, the second of 2 huge games this weekend. Early in the first half, the ball gets passed to Simon Doherty, who shoots on Borja and Goita, and he just slaps that ball away. The score remains 0-0. The ball is picked up by Quinnipiac Philip Surprise here as it is taken down the field. He crosses it over here to William Cavallo, who heads that ball in for the 1-0 lead. See here the Bobcats celebrating. Then, in the final minutes of the first half, Robbie McCarney passes it all the way down, you can see here, to Philip Surprise. Philip Surprise will see that that goal is wide open. He takes that corner shot right into the goal. Bobcats are up 2-0. Corner kick here in goes to Anders Vesthaven, who takes it on Borja and Goita. Borja will not let that go in. QU still up 2-0. Later on in the second half, with the ball up for grabs, it's picked up by William Cavallo, who takes it into the goal. As you can see here, he slips it right past the Knights. QU is up with the 3 lead. Look at that celebration right there. Quinnipiac would hold that 3-goal lead and finish the regular season in first place in the NEC. The Bobcats will play at home on Friday, November 9th against St. Francis for the Northeast Conference Tournament semifinals.
Coming up next, we've got even more soccer for you as Nick Dench stops by to offer some insight on both the men's and women's teams. Later on, our own Giovanni Mio speaks with women's cross-country coach Carolyn Martin. Stay tuned.
The women's soccer season has come to an end after losing to first-place St. Francis University last Sunday in the final game of the season. They had a shot to make it to the postseason, but fell to Sacred Heart last week, which gave the Pioneers the tiebreaker over QU for the 4th seed in the conference. The Bobcats did beat last-place Robert Morris and lost to first-place St. Francis during a 2-game road trip in Pennsylvania, but the loss to Sacred Heart would ultimately be the one that cost the Bobcats their chance at the postseason. Now we're going to bring in our soccer analyst Nick Dench to talk about the soccer teams. Nick, now that the men's team has clinched the NEC regular season title, how do you see them faring next weekend during the conference tournament?
I think if they keep up the way that they've been playing lately, with 4 shutouts in their last 6 games and only giving up 1 goal in the other 2 games during that stretch, they can easily win this conference. They've been scoring. Everybody's hitting on all cylinders right now. Borja and Goita looks off the charts good right now. So this team really should have no problem winning the conference if they do end up playing the way they have been.
And besides Philip Surprise, who do you say has been most important to the team this season?
What a lot of people will say Borja and Goita, and I completely agree. He's a very good player, but I think Robbie McCarney, that transfer graduate student midfielder, really brings a second, third dynamic to this team and can really score, assist. He's got 4 goals and 7 assists this season, which is second on the team in points behind Phil Surprise. So he's really been a huge player and stepping up lately with 3 penalty kick goals this season. So he's been huge for this team.
And now with the women's team missing the conference tournament, what would you most attribute their struggles to?
Women's team really struggled scoring all season. They didn't score more than 3 goals at all this season. It's really a lot of the games scoring 1, maybe 2 goals, and they got shut out a lot of ties. The only reason they were this good this season is because of their defense and goaltender Jill Kelly.
Unlike Philip Surprise on the men's team, there was no true standout player for the women. But who had the best season for the team?
As I just mentioned, Jill Kelly. She had 6 shutouts this season in her 7 wins and a .79 goals against average. So she was real consistent the entire season. Really, it's a tough break on her for her season that her team didn't give her more goal support.
The women's cross-country team ran away with the Northeast Conference Championship for the 8th consecutive year. All 7 qualifying Bobcats finished within the first 23 runners in the 5K event. 4 of Quinnipiac's runners achieved all-conference honors in the process. Quinnipiac has now won more consecutive NEC titles than any other college in the conference in any sport. Our own Giovanni Mio spoke with Coach Carolyn Martin to discuss her team's impressive season thus far.
I'm here with Coach Carolyn Martin, the head coach of the women's cross-country team, which just won their 8th straight NEC championship. Coach, congrats.
Thank you very much.
So how does it feel to actually win 8 straight championships?
Well, it's pretty neat. You know, we really knew we could do it this year, but we knew it was going to be a battle. But it's been really exciting to be part of the program for this long and being able to see them really become a powerhouse distance program that they have of the conference.
Now, for the past 8 championships, is there any one that specifically stands out the most and why?
Actually, this is my 4th year as a head coach, so, the first 4 for us were all under Sean Green, and this year particularly was important for me because this was my first year as it's all the kids I've recruited. So to me, it was, I really needed to put it together this year to prove that, I can live up to my mentor who preceded me, so.
Now, you took over the job for your mentor back in 2009. You started off as an assistant coach back in 2004. Anything you took from Mr. Green that you use for your current job?
Absolutely. I can't think of one particular thing that I use, but I've certainly, he was my coach, and I worked with him as assistant coach for 5 years, and I certainly, have kind of run the program very similar to what he has done, and I take a lot of his advice and still currently do. I talk with him all the time, and whenever I'm stumped with something, he's someone to lean on and call and talk to about coaching advice. But no one particular thing that sticks out in my mind at this point.
And you also participated in women's cross country as a student as well. You actually won the 10,000 meter your final season as part of the women's cross country team. Anything you took from being a student athlete to being a coach?
I think it's really important to be an athlete before you become a coach. I think your experience as an athlete can always come into play when you're coaching. And so I think, there's a lot of times when I use my experiences and how I was able to pull through or win something and kind of talk to my athletes about that. So I think it's important to be able to bring your own experiences and the kids kind of feed off that as well.
Now, other than, of course, the NEC championship, any other high points in your season that you look up to and think of it as a success?
Honestly, this season, the high point was winning the conference championship. We struggled at the beginning of the season. We were working the girls really hard, and we didn't have any one particular day that was that great. And, my front runners are still not having the best season they've had in the past, but are still really coming through the way they needed to for the team at the end of the season. So.
Now, looking ahead, you guys are having the regionals November 9th in Connecticut. What are you doing as well as working out to prepare for this event?
I think it's a lot of mental preparation. So much of running is being mentally tough and being able to battle with your teammates. So we meet a lot, with the individuals and talk to them about where we think that they should be in a big race like the regional championships. And then we'll be meeting with the team at several different times and talking about, how they need to pack up as a team and where they can be in the races, and so that they have their goals well, in their heads well in advance, so that they're really mentally prepared to go and attack the race next week.
Thank you, Coach. Giovanni Mio, Sports Paws.
Cross country may be doing well, but the same can't be said for the field hockey team. They're going home after a first-round playoff exit to Ryder. The team went 12-6 this season, which was its best record in over 10 years, and they were the 3rd seed in the conference playoffs, but lost to 1 seed and eventual champion Ryder on Friday 4-1. This marks the end of their season, one in which goalie Nicole Lewis was named the Northeast Conference Goalkeeper of the Year. She led the conference in shutouts with 4 in 16 games. Jess Russo also had a good year for the team. She was 4th in points and 7th in goals in the conference. Now we're going to bring in Zach Daly to talk a little field hockey for the final time this year. Zach, overall, what are your thoughts on the team this year?
Well, coming into this year, the field hockey team really didn't know what to expect. You lose players like Kim Cuniff and Megan McCready, who were instrumental to last season's team. You don't have that firepower on offense this year. But this team still, like you said, produced 12 wins, which is tied for the most in program history. This team's going to go down as one of the best in the recent years of Quinnipiac field hockey. And I think one of the captains, Jenelise Taylor, summed it up best after the game on Friday. They're walking off the field, and she just goes, "I'm not mad." It's because they had such a great season. She individually had a great season. Overall, the Bobcats did have a great season despite losing in the semifinals.
Now, Zach, what was one surprise and one disappointment from the field hockey team this season?
Well, I'll start with the disappointment because it's really hard to pick one out. I'm just going to go with the big disappointment is they didn't win the conference. This is a team that once it got rolling at the conference play, Monmouth was struggling, Rider was struggling. This is a team that thought they could win the conference. And if it was probably hosted at a different site, if it was hosted at Quinnipiac, hosted at St. Francis, the Bobcats probably would have beaten Rider on a different field. But Rider has such a great home field advantage. That's where they were able to go into that game and beat the Bobcats. My surprise of the year goes to junior Krista Romano. Last year didn't tally 1 point. Coming into conference play, she scored 10 points. That's 3 goals, 4 assists, 5 goals, 5 assists on the season. She had a great year going into her senior season, has a lot of momentum.
Now, Zach, you talked about it a little bit, but Rider continues to be an issue for the Bobcats. Will next year be the year that Quinnipiac finally gets over that hump?
Well, it's difficult to say. The Bobcats are returning all but 2 players, but they're losing 2 key players in Lauren Zimniski, and probably the biggest loss that any team can face is Nicole Lewis, the NEC goalkeeper of the year. Can the Bobcats get over the hump next year? Yes, because they are returning so much talent. They're returning Jenelise Taylor, Krista Romano, Jess Russo, and players like that who can score, but they're taking a big hit at the back line of that defense with Nicole Lewis. It's all going to come down to how does Megan Connerboy replace Nicole Lewis. If she can step up, no one's ever going to be Nicole Lewis, but if she can step up and do what Lewis did in the beginning of her career last year with maybe like a 750 goals against that or a 750 save percentage, 2 goals against average, which she is capable of, the Bobcats should be fine next year.
All right, thanks a lot, Zach. We need to take a break here, but coming up, we'll talk a little rugby. The women's game was postponed, but New Blue played their first league championship at home yesterday. Find out how they did. And the presidential elections are on Tuesday, so our analysts will elect their own presidents of Quinnipiac Athletics. Who will be your commander-in-chief? Stay tuned to find out.
Hurricane Sandy didn't deter many QU sports, but it did postpone the game rugby was supposed to play against Rutgers today. That game will be played at a later date. The Bobcats have won 9 games this season with no losses. QU played Rutgers last year in their first game as a Division I team and lost 51-0. Let's take a look at a few of the key games that rugby has played so far in their undefeated season. The first game Quinnipiac played this season was against Eastern Illinois, one of the few opponents QU faces that is not a club team but is in fact in their division. The Bobcats won this game with a close score of 2-1. The Bobcats have bumped up the scores quite a bit since that first game. They broke all kinds of records, beating Hofstra 130-0. Since then, the Bobcats have had some tougher matchups against Westchester and Albany, but have remained strong and powered through to remain undefeated.
Quinnipiac may not have a football team, but school spirit is high for the next best thing, New Blue Rugby. After playing their home games everywhere but their actual home, the club team had their second game on Quinnipiac soil yesterday, and it was for the New England-wide Collegiate Rugby Conference Championship. The team was 7-0 heading into the game against Central Connecticut State and defeated them 43-19 to win their league championship. Although the team went undefeated, they were still battle-tested. They beat Hartford 8-5 in the season opener and overcame a 10-point deficit with under 10 minutes left against Babson to win 17-13. Now that New Blue has won their conference championship, they'll play the Colonial League champions in Bristol, Rhode Island. If they win 2 games there, they'll then go to the national tournament in Colorado.
America may be electing a new president in a few days, but here at Sports Paws we tend to put QU athletes on a similar pedestal.
That's why we asked our good friends Daly and Dench to nominate a president and vice president of Quinnipiac Athletics. But of course that means we need a debate.
So if you could both start by introducing your candidates and giving an opening statement. Nick, we'll start with you.
I'm going to nominate my president to be Zach Curry, the captain of the men's hockey team, and his vice president, Ike Azatam, a junior basketball player. Zach Curry showed his poise early this season after that loss to Acadia when they really should have won that game very handily, coming out with a statement saying, "We're not old men, we're not 40-year-old men. We should have come back from this game after that road trip to Maine and come out and played much better than we did." And Ike Azatam shows a lot of poise on that basketball court last year, taking Justin Ruddy's spot to where Justin Ruddy was his senior year.
My 2 candidates, I am nominating Nicole Lewis, the goalkeeper of the field hockey team, for president, and I'm going with another men's ice hockey player, Matthew Pekka, for vice president. leadership is essential, especially when you're going for a presidential role, and that's what Nicole Lewis has been for the field hockey team. She's a vocal leader off the field, on the field, and she leads with her actions on the field. She was named the NEC Goalkeeper of the Year, as we have mentioned. She was top 5, top 10 all year in crucial stat categories, such as goals against average, such as save percentage. Matt Pekka for vice president, he's a big face. People recognize him, and he gets it done on the ice. 11 straight points last year, that's unheard of.
Now, both presidential candidates are seniors, and you mentioned a few stats already, but what else have they done in their past 4 years to deserve the presidency?
Nick?
Well, Zach Curry, really a huge player. Shot blocking, does what goaltenders do, but he does it all over the ice. So that's a huge thing for him. He can lead them on and off the ice, as I mentioned his quote earlier. He's a very emotional player. He doesn't give his players any slack on the ice. He is always in their faces on the bench if they do something wrong. He's always the first person to correct somebody when they do something wrong. So that's something you really like to see. And Nicole Lewis can't be on the bench to do that like Zach Curry can.
All right, exactly. Nicole Lewis doesn't have to be on the bench. You don't want Nicole Lewis on the bench. You want her in the cage. You want her stopping the shots, and she's been doing that for her 4 years here. She has been, like I call her, she's the fortress of the Quinnipiac field hockey team. She's the reason this team got the 4th seed in the playoffs. She is the reason that they had a chance in that game against Ryder on Friday. She has been instrumental for the past 4 years. She's a leader on the field, off the field, and I don't want to throw this in there. She had a 3.97 last year. Wow.
Grade point average does not matter in this category.
It does help. You want some smarts going in.
If you want to talk smarts, Zach Curry had a 3.95. So
I'll take the 200ths of a point. Nicole Lewis still smarter by 2/100ths of a point.
All right, guys, and what do you think the vice presidential candidates will do in the future in their position? And adversely, what do you think the other person's vice president is going to do that's not as good?
Well, I'll start with this one. The men's ice hockey team, they're in and out of the top 20 in the nation, and one of the main reasons why they've been there is Matthew Pekka. He may not be the leader off the bench or in the locker room that, say, as Zach Curry is, why you're nominating for president, why I'm nominating Matthew Pekka for vice president, is because what he does on the ice. Going back to the 2008 election, John McCain nominating Sarah Palin kind of as a PR move, a notable face, people wanting to vote for a woman because Hillary Clinton didn't get the nomination. Well, it really didn't work out for John McCain there. Matthew Pekka is a face that people recognize. People know what he does, how he does it. He's a goal scorer. He's an assist machine. He's a great person. Ike Azotam, again, a great player, but, again, he's got help around him that Matthew Pekka, he's the one giving out the help. Ike Azotam, has, Garvey Young, has Dave Johnson. He had Bo last year. He had Justin Ruddy, people like that. Matthew Pekka is the only one dishing out the assists on that team. You got Usman Drame playing the low post as well with Ike Azotam.
Ike's job isn't to assist anybody, though. Ike Azotam stepping into Justin Ruddy's role. This is Justin Ruddy we're talking about, the all-time Quinnipiac rebounding leader. He was a huge asset for that team. Ike comes in as a sophomore. You usually see that sophomore slump, and we see Pekka with that right now, really not producing the way he did last year.
But it's early in the season. You're what, 3-4 games into
Ike
the
came
season?
into the season last year. First 10 games, he was the #1 rebounder in the nation. Leads this team. Really doesn't play a lot of good teams. They second in the nation for the 2nd year in a row in rebounding. He's a huge rebounder. He's not supposed to get the assists. He gets the rebounds.
Straight points.
Like Azotam.
9.5
rebounds a game.
Record.
Adding a double-double to every game.
But the Bobcats have always been known for their rebounding. It's a Bobcat record. I don't know where it stands in the nation. 11 straight points. I'm just,
And Ike Azotam, really, he can't get worse than what he did last year. He stepped into a starting role last year. This year he's coming in. He's coming in as the leading scorer.
Relax a little bit here.
All right, guys.
You guys are doing great so
go to the
far.
last
But
question.
just in closing, could you guys just briefly explain why your candidates are the best for these positions?
You want this one or you want me
Civil
to
go first?
Well, like I said, Matthew Pekka, a great leader on the ice. He's a face that people recognize. I'm just going to stress that. But Nicole Lewis, she is an unsung hero for Quinnipiac Athletics. No one really pays attention to the field hockey team that much, but if you saw what she did this year, arguably one of the best goaltenders in the nation. She is just, like I said, smart, on the bench a great leader, on the field, balls don't really go in the back of the cage that often.
Ike Azotam, as I said, steps into roles huge when he needs to. He can really fill a role if Zach Curry, for whatever reason, gets impeached or disappears from the presidency. Zach Curry, leader on the ice, leader off the ice, does a goaltender's job all over the ice. Smart, like Nicole, they're both very good candidates, and if you have to ask me, I was going with your
Exactly. He was going to vote for Nicole Lewis. Again, you really can't replace Nicole Lewis. You can replace the other 3 candidates.
They look like you're about to throw a punch there. It was getting serious.
All right, so it looks like we have come to a conclusion that Nicole Lewis would be the president. So it's been an exciting week of Quinnipiac athletics, from breaking records to winning titles and even a historical announcement. We've had it all.
Yeah, you could even throw a debate in there, Carolyn, and you can bet that next week will be just as exciting. If you want to get involved with the station or our show, go to our website, www.q30.org.
And don't forget to follow Sports Paws on Twitter at Q30 Sports. For our analysts, producers, and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Carolyn Fales.
And I'm Zach Russo. Good night, everybody.